Welcome, everyone. Manny Tejeda here, a CFES Berlin Pathways Program Director. And with us today, we have our friends from TransPerfect, and we are excited for our last workshop of the season, which is LinkedIn setup. Obviously, this ties along really well with one of our essential skills, which is networking. But we're going to be talking a lot more about the actual skill of networking and how do you put it into place with a platform like LinkedIn, how you can grow your network, but more importantly, how do you set your best foot forward? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tabby, who's going to do introductions and then lead us into our workshop today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tabitha Ashura. I work at TransPerfect, as Manny said. And today with me, we have Joyce Chen and Meng Kregel, who are also both TransPerfect employees. So we're going to share a little bit with all of you about how to set up a LinkedIn, what a LinkedIn is. Now, before we do that, I want to give you a little bit of context about who TransPerfect is. If you've been to previous sessions, then none of this is new to you. But if this is new for you, we are a relatively large global business. So we have over 6,000 employees across 100 cities worldwide. And we're kind of a continually growing business. So the number of locations we have expands each year. And the reason for that, now, if you think about it, what do all these brands have in common? Well, all of them need to be able to sell products to people who don't speak English. So we work translating for all of these different companies. We work across a bunch of different industries. So whether it's a Coca-Cola ad and you want to make sure that your client in Mexico can read it, or maybe someone needs a birth certificate for their visa translated, or they're working on, a clinical trial for a vaccine. We work with all of those different kinds of translations, as well as interpretation and providing technologies that support those things. So because we do so many different things, from doc translation to litigation support, to voiceover and recording and that type of thing, it means that there's a lot of different types of opportunities within our organization, whether you work as a translator yourself or not. None of us on the call today are translators. Joyce works in our production team, so she works directly with some of our translators. Megan works in recruiting, sometimes for our translators, but sometimes for other specialty roles. And I actually work very closely with our CEO and chief of staff on things for our employees. So it's a very different range of jobs that you can find within the translation industry. So that's why I wanted to share a little bit about that. So hopefully you're all still hanging in there, end of the semester. I'm sure we're all doing varying degrees of ready for the holiday. But I think if we can, focus in for today, you're going to learn a lot and you'll have a better idea of how to set up a LinkedIn and why you would set up a LinkedIn. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over.
Cool. So let's start with what is LinkedIn. So basically, LinkedIn is a professional social media site that lets you connect with people not only that you already know, but people that you want to meet. So there are a ton of features on the website. There's a job board. You can read things about how to look for a job. You can even chat directly with recruiters or people in an industry that you want to get into. And your LinkedIn profile is basically a long version of your resume. So you can really expand on the skills that you can't really expand on the resume because you don't have enough space or something. So why is a LinkedIn important? There are a ton of professionals on LinkedIn, and a lot of recruiters use the site to find and look for potential candidates. So it's always really important to keep your LinkedIn as updated as possible so everyone knows what you're doing. And also, especially in this day and age where technology is so important, networking is also really important in looking for a job. LinkedIn gives you a much wider network than you would otherwise get if you had to meet everyone in person. So when will I use LinkedIn? There are a couple scenarios. One is when you're looking for a job. So LinkedIn actually has a lot of job postings, and it lets you filter by things like location or job role to help you narrow down to find a selection of jobs that you are really interested in. It's also useful when you're looking to make new professional connections. So let's say you want to maybe pivot into a new industry, but you're not really sure where to start. You can leverage your college alumni group or something and find someone that you have something in common with and try to break into their industry like that. And then also when you're looking to hire someone in the future. So personally, when I have to interview for someone in my department, I also like to look at their LinkedIn ahead of time because it gives you a lot more in detail and in depth idea than just looking at someone's resume. So there are a lot of parts of LinkedIn profile, and Megan's going to break it down so it doesn't seem so scary.
Hi everyone, so I'm Megan. So let's start out with your LinkedIn photo. So while you don't need to hire a professional photographer, definitely here's some things to keep in mind. Don't take a selfie. They're really awkward, horrible angles. Have a friend take the picture for you. Make sure that you're in good lighting, don't be in a dark room. I suggest smiling, or if you don't like smiling, at least a neutral face. Like try and look approachable. Show only your head and shoulders. Don't have the full body shot. As you can see from the picture on the left, it's really kind of awkward, more Instagrammy. Make sure that it's current. So I am always updating my LinkedIn picture probably every 2 years, I've found. Make sure it's only you in the picture, professional clothing, and don't use a filter. Please do not put a Snapchat filter up. If you can go to the next one. All right, so your headline. Your headline is one of the most visible sections of your profile. It's the chance to make a positive impression, and it's really kind of what I would argue as being the hook for getting people to go to your profile. It should definitely have keywords that are relevant for your job search or your career, but don't be too specific. So here to the left are some examples of like Neelam looking for a summer internship for full stack development. They're also a grad student. These are the types of things that I would recommend doing. Put that you're a student, but also put what you're interested in, because that'll when recruiters are looking at your profile, that's what we're really looking for. Is like, what is your title? What are you looking for? Where do you study? Are you going to fit into what I'm looking for? If you can go to the next one. So summary, this is your chance to say hello. It's what LinkedIn uses for search engine optimization. So definitely use keywords. I actually did a LinkedIn training with my team because I've helped change LinkedIn's user interface for recruiters for how we can search for different profiles. Keywords are key, and make sure that you're putting them in this summary section, just because sometimes recruiters aren't just searching in the skills section, which we'll get into that later. But you definitely want to have it in your summary because that's what's going to pop out when they're running a LinkedIn search for you. So for example, here, like a programmer might include words like Java and C++. Nurse might look for healthcare, RN, or nursing student. Make sure that it's super concise because you have 3 lines before you have to click on the read more option. And this is your chance to introduce yourself, talk about your goals, your career path, accomplishments. I actually have my skills also listed in this section, and I have it literally listed as skills, and then it's just basically keywords. Like if you look into Google AdWords, that's basically my AdWords, so that Google finds them and recruiters are finding them when they search through LinkedIn as well. Next, please. So professional experience, list the jobs that you have had, including part-time, along with you've accomplished at each of them. You can include photos and videos from work here. I always put links just because then it links to the company that I worked for, and then the recruiter can just click on the link immediately and see what I was talking about. Definitely bullet point it out. I always recommend going and looking at old job postings for positions that you've held and typing those in. I know that you guys are definitely younger and not as experienced, but I mean, if you've had like a grocery store job, look at other cashiers' LinkedIn accounts. They have different things that they have worked on. So like if you've worked in the courtesy booth, like de-escalation tactics, just all kinds of different things. So don't like just think of, okay, I have to use just job postings. Look at other people's profiles, run a keyword search yourself, and that'll help you build your profile as well. Next, please. So honors and awards. This is the place for you to brag. And I highly encourage doing this. You worked really hard to achieve that goal, and this is where you can list it. So if you gave a speech, did you sit on a panel? Did you work on special projects? Did you provide trainings? Were you appointed to a committee? This is where you should list your honor roll, your dean's list, if you just want a scholarship, if you're on student council, what different committees you're on. I know I did National Honor Society, I did different academic Super Bowl teams, Spell Bowl team, all of those teams that you won things. If you were perfect speller, list that because we want to see it. So don't hold back on this section. This is what shows you as a well-rounded individual. Next. Projects. So this might not apply to you all, but it could. So if you've ever led a team assignment, or if you built an app, John, I'm seeing your message and we can actually talk about that later. I could probably give you some tips on that. But the section shows teamwork and initiatives. Like if you worked on a project for school and it actually went and got picked up then by like your local radio station, talk about that here. Next, please. Okay, courses. So maybe you've taken specific classes in school that can relate to your career. Did you enroll in a coding academy? This is the place to discuss. So like for me, I figured out I was really good at languages when I was 10. And so I started learning different language courses with like the Polish National Alliance, different societies in the Chicagoland area. So I listed those on my profile. Just because it's really helpful information. It shows that you've taken these courses. I would recommend if you're in college or if you're going into college, list what courses you're currently enrolled in and keep updating that. I have all of my undergrad courses listed and I'm doing grad school now and I list every single course that I'm enrolled in right now because that could be really vital to a job poster because they'll look and see, hey, you know what, you've had schooling on this. This is great. So keep that in mind. For skills. So obviously different people will have different skills in different ways. The best ones are relevant to your industry or the position that you're targeting. You also want to add skills that you're actually skilled in and you can endorse others for these skills. So like for me, my skills are kind of across the board. So I don't have just my recruitment skills. I have different marketing skills. I have SEO skills. I have Russian. So mine aren't just for one industry because I can target several different ones. Play around with it is my best suggestion because you don't want to look too broad, but at the same time, all of my things are kind of related. So definitely, obviously don't put just like painting and art if you're trying to get a nursing degree, but if you want to add art in as to show that you're creative, sometimes you have to come up with creative solutions on your feet. Like look at what's going on with COVID. So definitely put those skills because other people will go and endorse you for them and you can endorse others. I've endorsed all of my coworkers that I work with, especially if they're highly skilled at something. I think I have like 600 endorsements or something for different linguistic skills that I have. It boosts your profile and the more people engage with your profile, the more it'll be seen during LinkedIn searches. Next, please. Organizations. So this is also a great place to list those clubs that I kind of touched on earlier. If you do track, if you do volleyball team, if you do drama, if you do band, list those. We want to see what you can do. We want to see that you're involved in different things. Next. And volunteer experience, this is also super helpful. List this. Have you done volunteering? Again, if you've done National Honor Society type things, then you probably have done volunteer work. If you haven't yet volunteered, I know this year it's kind of difficult, but there are a lot of opportunities out there still. There's been like virtual toy drives, different virtual gift cards that have been sent to different homeless shelters throughout the year. So get involved. It shows that you care about the community. It'll actually help you with networking as well. You'll meet a whole bunch of people that you hadn't before. I highly recommend doing it. Next, please. Okay, and your education. So again, your education is a great way to link up with alumni on LinkedIn. It improves your visibility and people you may know. So I went to Indiana University, and I'm always, almost every single day, I have different former alumni, current students connecting with me, adding me as a connection, wanting to ask me about my industry, because they're studying French at IU and are like, hey, I didn't know this was an option. This is super exciting. And then I get to talk about what I've done and how awesome the language services industry is. And that's just because we went to the same school. And so this is you could have probably done the same, if you decide to rush, you could do the same sorority. You could have also both eaten at the same food hall. It's a great way to make connections. And next, recommendations. So while you might not have too many references at this time, while you go and progress through your career, you should definitely consider endorsing people who help you, and asking for endorsements in return. I always like to take the time to endorse different coworkers and colleagues over the years. I've actually endorsed former professors and TAs of mine as well, just because it's, hey, you know what? Your class was amazing. You literally changed my life. I want other students to go and take your course. And then your former prof or your teacher may go and write a reference for you too. And it's always good for recruiters to see that you have a whole bunch of personal and professional references and recommendations listed on your LinkedIn as well. Next.
Cool. So I'm going to go over some quick tips on how you can use your LinkedIn. So as you can see, you can put a ton of information on your LinkedIn. There doesn't have to be a limit. You can be as expansive as you would like. This is a chance to include things that don't necessarily fit on your resume. So Megan talked about the volunteer section. That's a great place. If you volunteer a ton, but you don't have an entire page to dedicate to volunteer on your resume, you should really mention a lot of it on your LinkedIn. You want to optimize yourself to be found in your industry. So Megan also talked about in the about section where you're putting your summary, you can use those keywords that you can be found better. And then you should always, always, always keep it updated frequently and connect with everyone you meet to try and build up that network. Okay, so obviously one of the largest reasons that someone is on LinkedIn is to network. It lets you, again, connect with people that you not only know, but people that you want to meet and all around the world. And leveraging your current network can definitely help you find a job because you never know when something will open up. So 2 important things about networking on LinkedIn is that when you connect with people, make sure you send a message saying why you're connecting. Everyone always likes a personal connection. You don't just want to drop in someone saying like, hey, do you have a job opening? You want some sort of background information about why you're interested or why they came up on your radar. And like any relationship, you want to follow up and stay in touch with connections you make to show that you're really invested and that you really care about making this happen. Do you guys have any questions on all of the information we just gave you?
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
Megan, not to brag, but how many connections do you have on LinkedIn?
I think I'm at almost 24,000. I can give you the exact number. So I have always liked connecting with people, especially when I first joined LinkedIn back in 2011, which is crazy. I've had it almost 10 whole years now. I just started connecting with everybody in my industry, and it's just kind of taken off now. And so I have different translators. I have people that I've worked with at different translation agencies. I have different people that I went to undergrad with. I have different people I went to school with in high school. I have different people in my grad school network. It's huge niche networks that I'm in. I'm at 24,041 connections.
Wow. Impressive.
So it's
That's
almost
awesome.
it's almost like a small little mini database, but it's really cool because I have people reaching out to me all the time being like, "Hey, I know you're not looking for this right now, but can you maybe point me in the right direction for something else?" I have had former people that I've actually interviewed with reaching out to me if I know anybody, if I'm interested, one, in working for them, or two, if I know anyone and could recommend anyone, which I have then recommended a whole bunch of coworkers and colleagues to work for them then. So it's amazing the power of LinkedIn networking.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because I think people always think about their networks as who they know, but not necessarily who the people that they know. And I think this is a prime example of the beauty that it is. Like, you know, I'm gonna go connect with Megan. You know, she has 24,000 connections, but I'm gonna do it because, you know, I sat in a workshop with her about setting up my LinkedIn. So whenever I send my invitation, you know, I'm gonna make it clear, hey, Megan, thank you so much for the information about setting up my LinkedIn. Looking forward to expand my network. Boom. So I think people really, you know, it could be that simple, but you have to be a little bit intentional. So I guess one question I have, and I know a lot of people who are like, well, I'm not, you know, I don't have a LinkedIn. I just have my resume. How do I make that transition? Do I just put in every information I have in my resume onto my LinkedIn and go from there?
Sure. So LinkedIn has the option to import your resume as sort of a starting point. So you want to edit it after that point. You can include a lot more in your LinkedIn than you probably can in a one-page resume. So it's really an opportunity to highlight some of the things that your resume can't give you. It's also helpful to go back and, someone mentioned they need more keywords related to their industry. Go back and look at job postings that are similar to the industry you're in or the industry you want to be in, and look at what words they're using. And I just keep, a notepad, and I just jot down what are those words that I'm seeing over and over again. And that way you'll be able to take the chance and go back and update. And I'll also update my resume sometimes then based off of what I've just looked at on LinkedIn. I might say, oh, okay, my resume probably could include this as well. And it's not even something I really think about that I'm doing. I know, at least for me, I have a really hard time thinking about how do I put what I'm doing at work into words. And so that can be a really good way to kind of find those keywords. And it looks like we have a question. So the question was, can everyone watching connect with you? And absolutely. Please reach out to us on LinkedIn. Make sure that you mention where you saw us, use us to practice that message and how you connected with us so that we know who you are and where you're coming from. And we aren't wondering, how did this person appear out of nowhere? Megan, I feel like you had some interesting stories about that because you have so many connections.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate having an introduction to how you know me or how you may have heard about me. Just because I do have so many connections that then if you say, oh yeah, I attended, you spoke and it was, oh, okay, I know. Yes, that is exactly where, your name sounds familiar. If I don't know your name, just making that, helping me make that connection. And when you speak to other recruiters as well, always like connecting with them of how you've heard about them or how you know them, that's really key, because that'll definitely kind of like trigger our memory, jumpstart our memory of how we know you. I know I mentioned that last time too, at the resume writing seminar of how if I'm actually at a job fair or a conference, I'm taking notes. If you bring your resume or your business card, I'm taking notes and jotting down notes on your business card or on your resume for me to remember what you were talking about and who you look like. I'll usually be like, brown pantsuit, black shoes, and then I'll be like, okay, I remember who you are. Just random things to jumpstart my memory so that I remember this is a person that I definitely want to speak with again. So definitely don't be afraid either to send over a connection request to somebody. That's something I'd also like to say. So, for example, I was writing a paper about NATO And I wanted to interview some people at NATO. So I went and I targeted them on LinkedIn and sent them connection requests, saw if they accepted my request or not. And if they did, then I went and I sent them a message saying, hi, I'm a student and I have a couple questions because your website doesn't have this information. And I'd really like to ask you them. So you're either going to get one of two answers. You're either going to get yes or you're going to get no. So put yourself out there.
Megan, sometimes you wait a little bit because sometimes the people you're connecting with are not as responsive. But I think to go back to the essential skills, you got to persevere and you got to, now you don't want to keep bugging them, but you want to make sure if they've been active and it shows a little icon green if they're online, like that they're on and maybe they missed your message. Sometimes I don't get notifications on my phone, but if I go on my computer, I see that I have a message and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so sorry that I didn't respond to this. So I think being upfront, but thinking about, you talked a little bit about this, Megan, but I love both your take and Joyce's take on the ability to use your network to find out not just new positions, but find out what your peers are up to and see for when you get that request of like, hey, have a job opportunity, share with your network. I tend to do this sometimes. I just sent out to a few people I know, hey, this is an opportunity coming up. But sometimes I might not necessarily know someone who's interested in that. But what I've done is I just try to reach out to people and see how work is going and things like that. And if I come across something, I add value by sending them something that it's meaningful for them. But so that is one of the things that I do. Are there any other things that you would recommend as we can do to give back, not necessarily benefit from LinkedIn?
This isn't a personal example, but we were talking with our coworker Crystal last week, and she mentioned that during COVID, a lot of the people from her alumni group from college lost their jobs. And so they had like a group on LinkedIn, and people would talk about opportunities that they knew of, or if their own company was hiring to help point them in the right direction. And I think she mentioned a bunch of people got hired that way. And I feel like that's a great usage of LinkedIn that definitely benefits other people more.
Absolutely. And I would add another kind of feature of LinkedIn is it does have sort of like a Facebook style news feed. So there people will share articles, people will share ideas there. And that can be somewhere where if you have a nonprofit that you feel really strongly about, maybe CFES, you can share some of the information that they're sharing so that other people in your network are aware that they exist and what they're working on and what they're working towards.
That's a really great point, Tabby. Thank you for bringing that up. So perfect example is I recruit different vendors than a lot of my coworkers do, but I'll still share what job postings they have because I have such a big network. So it's like that bouncing, it's that bounce off domino effect. And then what happens is freelancers see that I shared it, and so they start sharing it. And so it's like this huge, it's the World Wide Web really opens up, and it's really amazing to see then the number of views. So definitely do that.
That's awesome. I mean, it goes full circle, right? I mean, you might just be on LinkedIn and all of a sudden you get on your feed a job. And kind of thinking about our first workshop, it was about searching for jobs when you don't even know what you're wanting to do. I think that's another opportunity to learn about jobs that you actually didn't think about, right? And you can actually inquire from someone who might be a recruiter or someone who just posted it out to learn a little bit more. And even if that's not a position for you, at least you learn about that position or that company that you might have not had any concept that it existed. So I think I want to go back to another point that you brought up, Megan, about reaching out to folks who, like, for instance, I'm still in school and I'm working on a research paper. Like, that's a great tool to be able to use, like real world experience from people who are doing that job and who can give you information. So what other tips might you provide on doing so?
I would just definitely make sure that you introduce yourself as a student and say, introduce your paper topic, how you're really interested in the topic, what it is that you're actually, trying to look for. So for me, for example, I was writing about um violence in different areas, and so I went and tried connecting with and did connect with a bunch of NATO advisors who are the ones making the policy about this, and asked them if they could send me over some links um that would help me with my research. And they, oh my gosh, the one sent over something like 50 to 75 links for my, and it was like the main meat of my research paper that then went and got published by the Department of State and NATO. So that's why it's not only like this great resource tool, LinkedIn could be used for arguably anything.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Joyce, can I put you on the spot?
Okay.
It's about your love of learning. Have you made any contacts with people who are learning another language too on LinkedIn?
No, my class is I'm taking a German class with two of my other coworkers, and we have a fourth person that we don't know, and we have not connected with him. We just got his email address. But I'm on like the opposite end of the LinkedIn spectrum as Megan. I think I have like 300 connections. I don't know. I have a lot to work on. I've taken a lot from this presentation too.
I've definitely learned from this presentation as well. I think I tend to use LinkedIn a lot when I'm working because I work with a lot of our partners. And so I tend to use it that way. And this summer was the first time I helped out our sales team for 2 months. And they use LinkedIn for everything. They use it to find, who's working at this company that might be interested in our products. And so they're connecting with people in a really different way because they're actually connecting with them to make a sale. And so it was the first time I started to look at my LinkedIn and go, oh, okay, I'm mostly, connected to vendors or people that I've worked with directly, but sometimes there's other reasons to be connected. And so after I had my first experience where I connected with a client and who had already been a client, she immediately added me on LinkedIn. And that was sort of my sign of, okay, I need to update this a little bit so that, it's also useful when you're networking within a job. So I think it's good to keep that in mind. And now all of you will be reaching out. So Joyce, it's time.
I know. I don't even have a picture. I'm like, I was telling Tabby if I use my LinkedIn as an example, it would be like what not to do.
So it looks like we have a question.
Great.
What are those skill quizzes? Do you recommend taking them?
So the skill quizzes are a pretty new feature on LinkedIn. They highlight certain specialty skills that you might have. So for instance, if you are into coding, there are little quizzes that you can take. You have to have time to sit down and go all the way through the quiz at one time. But I definitely think it's a good thing to add to your skill set because it's going to show not only do you say that you know how to do this, but you can prove that you know how to do this. So I think if you have one of those skills and you have the time, it's definitely a helpful tool.
To jump in, my friend had listed that she's an Excel guru, and so she took the Excel assessment through LinkedIn and then listed her score on her profile, and that's what got her new job. So definitely sit there and take them if you have those skills and you have the time. I know that there's technical skills, business skills, and design skills. So if those are your areas of forte, I highly recommend doing it because same thing, if you decide to do a paid for LinkedIn account, take the trainings. I took a bunch over the summer and was like, wow, this is great for my time management. And it was super eye-opening. So definitely if you haven't set up your LinkedIn yet and you want to do a free trial, try that free trial and take advantage of it is my best recommendation.
I would also point out that certain libraries will give you extended trials of the LinkedIn Learning Suite. So there's all sorts of different courses. I know I found the one on editing press releases was super helpful. So I have my team actually take them pretty regularly, but most of us are accessing them through our New York Public Library account. So different libraries have different setups for it, but a lot of them do have access, so it's worth looking at.
Well, I just want to say thank you to our panelists for taking the time again to sit with us and teach us a few things that are new, some newer to some of us than others. But I mean, what a treat to end the series this fall with the workshop LinkedIn. Stay tuned for what we're coming up for this spring, which will be another series of webinars and workshops that we'll conduct, and we'll be notifying you via email. So stay tuned. Thank you all.